Seperti apa dan maksudnya dari ibunya ketersinggungan dari apa?
Ya ketersinggungan antara ibu dengan antara korban dengan tersangka Tommy.
Oh.
Gue sudah mengakui ya, untuk pengakuan dari hater itu sebenarnya dia menyaksikan melihat.
Tapi dia tidak melakukan pembelaan terhadap ibunya, Pak.
Apa?
Saat itu tidak melakukan pembelaan terhadap ibunya.
Ya, ketika itu dia tidak melihat adanya niat untuk melakukan itu.
A suitcase left in the sun, and the smell of death leaking from inside. No one could have imagined what was hidden in that luggage. The battered body of a mother, folded like cargo and dumped without mercy. The killer, not a stranger, her own daughter.
Okay, so this is a video that I need to make. A lot of the times, since I've been a kid, I've heard the truth sets you free, the truth sets you free. And I never understood, but I'm Heather Mack, and I want to be set free. I don't want to live in a lie anymore. When I was 10, my mother killed my father in a hotel in Athens, Greece. 2 weeks before I came to Bali, I found out that she killed my father. And I made it up in my heart, in my mind, my soul, in my blood, in the oxygen running through my body, that I wanted to kill my mother. First, I asked Tommy, Schaefer, to help me find somebody to kill my mom for $50,000. And he said no. After that, I got this whole new savage idea in my head that I wanted to kill her in a hotel room because she had killed my father in a hotel room. We were going to Bali, so I began to plot. I began turning off Tommy's phone, taking Tommy's phone when he was asleep, starting in Chicago, taking Tommy's phone and having conversations between Tommy and myself, texting myself, having fake conversations, and then deleting them before he could see them. I did that because part of me knew that with this plan of killing my mom in a hotel, that I might get arrested. I didn't want to get arrested by myself in a different country. So I came to Bali and I told Tommy that he was going to come here for a vacation.
How did a wealthy young woman from Chicago turn a luxury vacation in Bali into a murder scene? That shocked the world. And what drives a daughter to kill the woman who gave her life? A suitcase in Bali. It began with a suitcase, abandoned in the trunk of a taxi parked outside one of Bali's most luxurious resorts. The driver noticed the strange silence inside it. No movement, no sound, just an eerie stillness. When police finally opened the battered silver case, they were hit with a stench so overpowering. Officers staggered back, choking. Inside was the contorted, lifeless body of 62-year-old Sheila Von Mack, a Chicago socialite, brutally murdered while on vacation with her daughter. But this was no random attack. The truth, darker than anyone could have imagined, would expose a toxic web of family secrets, a fatal romance, and a pregnancy that would turn a murder into a global scandal. To understand how it all unraveled, we have to go back to Chicago. where the story truly began. Sheila Von Mack lived a life many envied. Educated, elegant, and fiercely intelligent, she moved in high society circles. The widow of James L. Mack, a renowned jazz and classical composer, she raised their only daughter, Heather, in a $5 million Oak Park mansion. Heather Mack was beautiful, charismatic, and troubled. To outsiders, she was the privileged daughter of a cultural power couple. But behind closed doors, there were reports of chaos, screaming matches, police visits, allegations, witness of physical violence. Between 2004 and 2013, officers were called to the Mack residence more than 80 times. 80. Friends described Sheila as controlling, even paranoid. Heather, on the other hand, was volatile. She skipped school, ran with the wrong crowd, and posted cryptic social media messages that hinted at deeper resentment. And then came Tommy Schaefer. Tommy was a struggling rapper from Oak Park with big dreams and no money. He was charming, smooth-talking, and completely infatuated with Heather. But for Sheila, he was the embodiment of everything she feared: manipulative, dangerous, and intent on tearing her daughter away from her. She tried everything to keep them apart. She took away Heather's phone. She restricted her credit cards. She even allegedly contacted hotel staff on a prior trip to Bali in 2013 to warn them not to let her daughter spend time alone with Tommy. But love, or what felt like love, only burns hotter in the face of opposition. By early 2014, Heather was pregnant, and Sheila was livid. What happened next is a chilling portrait of how far someone will go, not just for love, but for escape. An escape from control, from consequences, from the past. In August 2014, the trio, Heather, Sheila, and Tommy, found themselves at the luxurious Street Regis Resort in Nusa Dua, Bali, a tropical paradise filled with swaying palm trees, infinite pools, and tourists seeking bliss. But in room 317, the air was anything but peaceful. CCTV footage captured Tommy arriving at the hotel 2 days after Sheila and Heather had checked in. He wore sunglasses and a hat pulled low, already out of place in the serene setting. Later footage would show tense, whispered conversations in the hotel lobby. Tommy pacing, Heather on her phone. A hotel employee later testified that Sheila looked worried that night. August 12th, the day everything changed. Tommy entered Sheila's room around 8:30 a.m. Heather was already there. According to later court testimony, the confrontation began almost immediately. Voices were raised. Accusations flew. Sheila allegedly screamed, "You will not ruin my daughter's life." Then, sudden silence. Tommy grabbed a metal fruit bowl and struck Sheila in the head again and again until she collapsed. Heather watched and then helped. Together, they stuffed Sheila's body into the suitcase. Her limbs broken to fit. Blood soaked the hotel towels. Her skull was fractured. Her last breaths were taken in a room with her only daughter standing above her. They wheeled the suitcase through the hotel lobby as if it were just luggage, smiling, laughing, even stopping to tip the bellboy. Hours later, the taxi driver noticed something was wrong. The couple had asked him to wait, said they'd be back in a few minutes, but they never returned. He opened the trunk to retrieve their bag and found death. Police were called. A manhunt began. Heather and Tommy were found hiding in another hotel, just miles away. They didn't resist, and when they were questioned, the horror truly unfolded. But their version of events, that was just the beginning. The pact. August 13th, 2014. The interrogation room in Denbiser's police headquarters was sweltering. The walls were stained. The fan spun uselessly overhead, and seated inside, handcuffed, were two young Americans. Heather Mack, 18, visibly pregnant, and Tommy Schaefer, 21, still wearing the same clothes he'd used to kill. At first, they denied everything. They said they found Sheila dead, that they panicked, that they were scared. But the evidence was overwhelming. The blood-stained fruit bowl, the CCTV footage, the hotel towels, the autopsy. Sheila's body had been forced into a position so unnatural. Even the seasoned coroner had to pause during his report. Then came the twist. Tommy confessed. He told police that Sheila had become violent when she found out about the pregnancy, that she had threatened to kill the unborn child, that he acted in self-defense. I didn't plan it, he insisted. She attacked me. Heather stayed mostly silent. She sobbed. She clutched her stomach. And yet, the investigators noticed something strange. No grief, no shock, just calculation. Then came the second confession. Tommy admitted they had discussed killing Sheila before the trip. Not once, not twice, multiple times. He said Heather had asked him to do it. She even offered money. But Heather, when confronted, refused to talk. The media back in the U.S. exploded. Headlines screamed murder in paradise, heiress behind bars, socialite slain in Bali. And as more details emerged, the public's fascination only deepened. Because Heather wasn't just a teenager in trouble. She was the sole heir to a $1.5 million trust fund. And Sheila, she had made clear in her will, if Heather committed a felony, she would lose everything. So the question became, was this about love or money? Investigators began piecing together the days before the murder. The evidence was damning. Tommy had flown to Bali on a ticket purchased with Heather's credit card. He'd brought no luggage, just a small backpack. Inside that bag was a rubber glove and a conspicuous lack of clothing, just enough to raise suspicion, not enough to be innocent. Text messages and hotel Wi-Fi logs showed Heather and Tommy had searched how to kill someone quietly. Bali crime scene cleanup. Can you be extradited from Indonesia? Then, most disturbing, came the text from the night before the murder. Heather, my mom is the only thing standing in the way. Tommy, after this, it's just us. Heather, I want her gone. Forever. Chilling. Intimate. Final. The police had their motive. They had premeditation. They had confessions. But under Indonesian law, there was something else to consider. The death penalty. Heather and Tommy were moved to Karabokan Prison, one of the most notorious penitentiaries in Southeast Asia. Nicknamed Hotel K. It was overcrowded, corrupt, and brutal. Inmates bribed guards for better treatment. Gangs ruled the corridors. Westerners were often targets. And Heather, she was pregnant. Her belly began to show. She was assigned a damp, mosquito-infested cell. She slept on a mat. Rats ran along the edges of the walls. Outside, protesters gathered with signs reading, "No mercy and justice for Sheila." But inside the prison, Heather played a different role. She began giving interviews, appeared calm, even charismatic. When asked about her unborn child, she smiled. "This baby saved my life." Was it guilt, delusion, or manipulation? Meanwhile, Tommy's tone shifted. He stopped cooperating. He claimed police had coerced his confession. He said Heather had lied to him, that she told him Sheila was abusive, that she never intended to split the trust fund, that he'd been used, a modern-day Bonnie and Clyde, gone radioactive. In April 2015, the trial began. Indonesian courtrooms are different. There's no jury, only a panel of judges. The proceedings are public, and media were packed into the gallery, cameras flashing with every expression. Heather walked in wearing a white blouse and red lipstick, calm, poised. Tommy looked sullen, guarded. They no longer sat together. Over 6 weeks, the prosecution laid out their case. Photos of the crime scene, screenshots of messages, testimony from hotel staff, forensic analysts, and even the cab driver who found the suitcase. The defense, they leaned into the abuse narrative. Heather's lawyer painted Sheila as domineering. Tommy's attorney claimed he was manipulated, told the baby's life was in danger. But it wasn't enough. In August 2015, 1 year after the murder, the judges delivered their verdict. Tommy Schaefer, 18 years. Heather Mack, 10 years, reduced due to her pregnancy and cooperation. No death penalty, no life sentence. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted, "Heather, do you feel justice was served?" She only looked down and whispered, "I just want to be with my baby." But what she didn't know was that the baby would become the center of an entirely new chapter. The baby in the cell. Inside Carabocan prison, a baby cried, wrapped in a pink blanket, born into concrete and steel. Little Stella Schaefer entered the world on March 17th, 2015, the same world her mother had helped rip someone out of just 7 months earlier. Indonesia doesn't separate babies from imprisoned mothers at birth. Instead, they live together, behind bars, until the child turns 2. So Heather Mack, now an inmate, became both a convicted murderer and a new mom, in a prison known for disease, corruption, and violence. To the outside world, it was surreal. The daughter of a wealthy Chicago woman, now raising her own child among drug traffickers and gang members in a tropical prison, thousands of miles from home. But inside her cell, Heather wasn't broken. She adjusted, organized, manipulated. She gave interviews, painted herself as a misunderstood victim, and a devoted mother. In one interview, she said, "Stella is my second chance. I want her to grow up strong. Nothing like the life I had." But back in the U.S., that statement hit like a slap, because there was one person who hadn't given up: Sheila's best friend and cousin, Debbie Curran. She had promised Sheila, if anything ever happened to her, she'd watch over Heather. And now, she believed Stella was in danger. She wasn't alone. As Stella turned 2, Indonesian law required that she leave the prison. Heather, still years from release, had a choice to make. Who would raise her daughter? She named a mysterious Indonesian woman as the baby's guardian, a woman with no deep ties to the U.S., no formal custody order, and no relation to the family. Some speculated this was Heather's attempt to keep Stella close and far from American courts. But Debbie Curran filed a motion in Chicago. She wanted custody. She believed Heather's influence was dangerous. And soon, an international legal storm erupted, one that blurred the lines between parental rights and the legacy of murder. Debbie told reporters, "Heather is not stable. That child deserves peace, not trauma passed down like a curse." Meanwhile, Tommy Schaefer, from his own prison cell, made a bold move. He filed for paternal rights. In an open letter, he claimed, "Stella is the only thing that matters to me. I want to do what's right." But to prosecutors, it was clear. This wasn't about justice. It was about leverage, about power. And the battleground wasn't a courtroom. It was the internet. Heather began using YouTube from behind bars. She posted carefully edited videos, some showing Stella learning to walk, others with Heather reflecting on motherhood. She wore soft makeup, spoke in measured tones, projected warmth. It was a strategy. She wanted to control the narrative, to transform public opinion. And shockingly, it started working. Comments flooded in. "She's changed. She's a good mom. Let her have a second chance." But then, in 2017, another twist. A leaked prison phone call surfaced. A recording of Heather and Tommy discussing the murder, laughing, reminiscing, planning how they'd play the course to protect Stella. and the trust fund. In the audio, Heather says, "You just gotta act like you're sorry. They'll buy it." Suddenly, the public's sympathy curdled into disgust. Whatever rehabilitation Heather hoped to show was now overshadowed by cold, strategic manipulation. She wasn't just a teenager in over her head. She was playing chess, with her own child as the pawn. Back in Chicago, federal prosecutors had been watching quietly. They saw the videos, the custody motions, the lies, and they knew Heather Mack might be behind bars now, but she hadn't paid her debt. There was something else, something bigger. And when the time was right, they would strike, because Part 4 is where the case breaks wide open again, and Heather Mack walks free. Freedom's price. October 29th, 2021. The prison gates of Carabocan slowly opened. Sunlight spilled through the bars. After 7 years behind them, Heather Mack walked out. No handcuffs, no jumpsuit, just a black blazer, sunglasses, and a tight-lipped smile. Her daughter, Stella, now 6, clung to her side. She had served only half her sentence, released early for good behavior, a controversial Indonesian policy meant to ease prison overcrowding. Reporters swarmed. Microphones were shoved in her face. "Heather, do you regret what happened? Where will you go now? What would your mother say?" Heather gave no clear answers. She waved, smiled, and with her daughter beside her, boarded a flight for the United States. But what she didn't know was that she was flying straight into a trap. Chicago O'Hare International Airport. The plane touched down just after 9 o'clock a.m. On November 3rd, Heather stepped off, expecting a second chance at life. Instead, she was met by a wall of federal agents. She was immediately arrested. The charges: conspiracy to commit murder in a foreign country, obstruction of justice, and, most damning of all, conspiracy to kill a U.S. citizen abroad. You see, while Indonesian courts had tried her for murder, the U.S. government had been building a parallel case, one that focused not just on the killing, but on the planning, the text messages, the trust fund, the manipulation. Sheila Von Mack was an American citizen, killed in a foreign country, and under U.S. law. That made it federal. This was no longer about redemption. It was about accountability. In the following weeks, court documents were unsealed, and what they revealed was damning. FBI wiretaps, new witness testimonies, bank statements. The government accused Heather of orchestrating her mother's murder specifically to access the $1.5 million trust fund left by Sheila's late husband, James Mack. They even introduced a sealed witness, known only as Individual A, who claimed to have seen Heather plotting the murder months before the Bali trip, offering to pay Tommy $50, zero for the hit. The prosecution's narrative was now clear. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was a calculated, cold-blooded conspiracy, one hatched in the mansions of Oak Park and carried out in paradise. But even as the case mounted, Heather changed tactics again. She pled not guilty. Her lawyers argued she had already served Tom. That extraditing and retrying her was double jeopardy. The courtroom battles were intense. Legal scholars debated international jurisdiction. Heather's legal team filed motion after motion. Some called it abuse of power. Others called it long overdue justice. But one fact remained. Stella was now in the custody of a family in Colorado. Safe, far from the chaos of headlines. And yet, even now, Heather fought to get her daughter back. From behind bars, she filed suit, demanding visitation rights, demanding parenthood from a cell. And when asked why, she simply replied, "She's all I have left." Public opinion fractured. Some saw a young mother being persecuted after already paying for her crime. Others saw a remorseless killer, gaming the system once again. But the truth, it was somewhere darker. Because buried in sealed court records, investigators uncovered a second plan, a document drafted months before Sheila's death, where Heather and Tommy allegedly planned to flee to another country using fake passports. They had considered Thailand, South Africa, even Venezuela. The murder wasn't just a final act. It was supposed to be the beginning of a new life. But instead, it was the end of everything. As of now, Heather Mack awaits trial in a U.S. federal court. She faces up to 20 years if convicted. And Tommy Schaefer, still in Bali, may face extradition next. But there's one final twist still to come. Because in Part 5, a secret witness comes forward, and everything Heather built begins to collapse. The secret witness. February 2023. Inside a sealed federal courtroom in Chicago. The air was electric. The audience was cleared. The media was shut out. And the judge looked visibly tense as the prosecution introduced a new name. Not found in any public records. Not mentioned in any court filings. Only one word echoed across the chamber. Witness X. For nearly a decade, this person had remained silent. They had never spoken to the media, never testified in Indonesia, never even been publicly linked to the case. But now, they were ready to talk. Their identity, a former friend of Heather's, someone who had been there in the months before the murder, who had seen things, heard things, and kept quiet out of fear. And what they revealed next would send shockwaves through the entire investigation. According to Witness X, the murder of Sheila Von Wees Mack was not spontaneous. It wasn't born in a moment of rage. It was born in a bedroom in Oak Park, over months of whispered conversations, handwritten notes, and rehearsed stories. Heather had allegedly outlined the plan in chilling detail, even suggesting they practice suitcase drills to see if they could fit a body. Witness X claimed Heather once laughed and said, "You think I won't do it? You don't know me." They also claimed Heather referred to her unborn child as the insurance policy, a way to avoid the death penalty, to soften her public image. Even more disturbing, they said she'd contacted multiple people before Tommy, offering the same deal: kill my mom, split the money. Tommy, according to this account, was not the mastermind. He was the one who said yes. This testimony shattered Heather's defense. Her lawyers had spent years painting her as manipulated, a victim of emotional abuse from both her mother and Tommy, a confused teen who made one catastrophic mistake. But Witness X's story told a different tale. A manipulator, a strategist, a young woman with a long game. The prosecution seized on this. In court filings, they described Heather as calculating and remorseless. They played audio clips, showed emails, and even introduced jailhouse drawings Heather had made. Sketches of herself with Stella, surrounded by cash, smiling in a mansion. It was image-making, fantasy building. Heather wasn't mourning her mother. She was building a brand. Then came a final, damning revelation. In a digital forensic sweep of Heather's old email accounts, investigators found a drafted but unsent letter, written just weeks before the Bali trip. It was addressed to a friend, and in it, she wrote, "If this works, I'll be free. I'll have the money, and I'll never have to hear her voice again." There was no sorrow, no fear, just resolve. The prosecution called it the Murder Manifesto. Heather's team tried to suppress it, arguing it was never sent, never acted upon. But the damage was done. The image of a scared girl had been replaced with something far colder. A daughter who planned and waited for the perfect moment to strike. Outside the courtroom, Sheila's friends wept. Debbie Curran, now the appointed guardian of Stella, gave a rare public statement. Sheila loved her daughter, she would have given her life for her. Instead, her daughter took it and tried to profit from it. The nation watched, stunned, because how do you reconcile that kind of betrayal? How do you grieve when the killer is your own blood? Inside prison, Heather grew quieter. She stopped doing interviews. Her YouTube channel vanished. Her letters became more erratic. In one, sent to a former friend, she wrote, "Everyone thinks they know the story, but they don't know me. One day, they'll see." But the only thing they saw was the truth unraveling piece by piece. And in part 6, the final chapter, we ask, can justice ever be enough? When a mother's final moments were spent staring into the eyes of the child she loved. The daughter's trial, October 2023. Nearly a decade after the crime that shocked nations, Heather Mack stood once again in court, older, hardened, and no longer shielded by youth or pregnancy. This wasn't Bali. This was federal court, Chicago, the same city where she grew up, where her mother raised her, where the whole story began. Now, it would be where it ended. She faced 3 felony counts, including conspiracy to kill a U.S. national abroad, the potential sentence, up to 20 years. And this time, there was no co-defendant, no Tommy, no excuses. It was Heather versus the truth. The prosecution's final case was devastatingly clear. They played hours of footage, the suitcase, the smiling selfies, the aftermath. They read the messages. She has to die. I'll take care of the body. You get the money. They showed the photos. Sheila's broken body, her blood-staining hotel towels, her final resting place, a suitcase. Bent, bruised, silenced. The emotional climax came when Stella's voice, now 9 years old, was played in a video deposition. She looked directly into the camera, fidgeting, eyes wide. "I don't know my mommy," she said softly. "I only know what people tell me." "Do you miss her?" a lawyer asked. She paused, then whispered, "Sometimes, but I'm happy where I am." Even the judge looked away. Heather's defense tried to reframe the narrative. Again, they argued she was traumatized by years of alleged emotional abuse from her mother, that she was manipulated by Tommy, that she feared for her unborn child. But this time, the jury didn't buy it. On November 3rd, 2023, almost exactly 2 years to the day since her return to the U.S., Heather Mack was found guilty. The verdict sent shockwaves. She stood motionless, lips pressed, no tears, just a flicker of something behind the eyes. Shock, maybe, or something deeper. In her final statement to the court, she said, "I regret what happened. I miss my mom. But I was a child, and I was scared. That fear made me do terrible things." But Judge Matthew Kennelly responded with a clarity rarely heard from the bench. "You were not a child. You were cunning, and your mother paid the price for your freedom." Heather Mack was sentenced to 26 years in federal prison, with time served and credit for prior incarceration in Indonesia. She is expected to remain behind bars until the year 2046. Today, Stella lives quietly with her legal guardians. Her name changed, her face hidden from public view. She is protected, loved, and given every chance at a normal life. But the scars of this case remain. The betrayal, the manipulation, the cold, calculated nature of a crime that began with family and ended with murder. Sheila Von Wees Mack was more than a victim. She was a mother, a woman who, despite every red flag, believed in her daughter's potential, right until the moment that belief killed her. And so, we're left with the final, unanswerable question. Can evil be born from love? Or was it always there, waiting, behind the smile of a privileged girl with a suitcase in paradise?